Colonial fitness.
The colonial period in American history was a blood-soaked, muscle-straining survival of the fittest era, where daily life was anything but a 9-to-5 grind. From the early 1600s to the mid-18th century, life in the New World wasn't about leisurely jogs or Pilates sessions. It was about brutal labor, endless toil, and a society scraping by on sheer willpower and a healthy disregard for comfort. The colonies, far from the sterilized bureaucratic environments we know today, were a world where government was a distant afterthought and survival was everyone's responsibility. In this unforgiving wilderness, physical activity wasn't a choice, it was survival, and it wasn't framed in fancy workout regimens, but in the life or death tasks that needed to be done. From the farm to the forest, from building shelters to chopping wood, the colonial experience was one of sweat, grit, and an unsentimental brand of rugged individualism. Step into the boots of a colonial settler. The year is 1650. You've just arrived in what can only be described as an overgrown hellscape, untamed wilderness stretching as far as the eye can see. The soil is fertile, sure, but it's also stubborn, full of rocks and roots that refuse to be tamed by any mere mortal. What do? Well, you get to work. No fancy gyms, trainers, smoothie bars, just the earth, sweat, and unshakable need to survive. Farming in the 17th century wasn't some romanticized farming simulator. It was grueling, backbreaking work. With wooden plows and axes, colonists hacked away at nature's stubbornness, sometimes with just the strength of their backs and hands. But hey, if you wanted to eat, you had no choice. Their resilience in the face of such challenges is truly inspiring. Hunting wasn't a stroll through the woods either. No, it was hours of grueling treks, hauling heavy equipment, sweating through your tunic while the wilderness threatened to swallow you whole. And let's not even get started on herding cattle. This wasn't a walk in the park, my friend. This was hours of marching across vast expanses of land, your boots caked in mud and your body aching. No need for a fitness coach. If you didn't keep moving, you'd starve or freeze to death. But of course, there were social dynamics at play. Men typically bore the brunt of the physical labor, the farm work, the hunting, the building of homes. Meanwhile, women worked just as hard, but their labor was often relegated to the invisible realms of the domestic sphere, hauling water, churning butter, spinning thread. Their muscles may not have bulged similarly, but trust me, they were forged in the fires of necessity. The shared struggle of all colonial laborers, regardless of gender, is a testament to their unity and shared history. Still, the toll of colonial life was steep. Injuries, exhaustion, and short life expectancies were the grim realities of a world where the body wasn't just a temple, it was a tool for survival. Now, let's take a trip across the Atlantic and look at what European intellectuals were thinking while colonists were busy breaking their backs. Enter Sir Thomas Elyot, a man who decided to write a book in 1537 called The Castle of Health, which sounds like something straight out of a Monty Python sketch. Elyot had a grand vision of health and fitness, and he was all about categorizing physical activities into 4 categories: strong or violent exercises. Think digging, climbing, and hauling. Basically, all the fun things the colonists did to survive. Swift exercises, running, tennis, and weapon play for speed and agility. Vehement exercises, fun stuff like dancing, javelin throwing, and football. Who knew the Puritans might have been into some crazy fitness regimens? Moderate exercises, long walks, and some combat training are needed by older people to keep their bones limber. Elyot was ahead of his time, thinking about fitness in ways that align with today's obsession with personalized workout plans. His book, The Castle of Health, published in 1537, was a pioneering work in the field of health and fitness. But here's the kicker. In colonial America, where the primary form of exercise was don't die, these quaint little categories weren't strictly at the top of my mind. Physical activity was just a part of the grind, not something you worked into your schedule. The positive and negative dimensions of physical activity in colonial life. So, what do we get from all this blood, sweat, and tears? A nation built on the twin pillars of rugged self-reliance and grueling physical labor. The colonists had to fight for survival, and in doing so, they forged a work ethic that would be the envy of any modern-day motivational speaker. They weren't just cultivating crops, they were cultivating the American spirit. No excuses, no coddling. Get it done. The legendary John Smith, leader of the Jamestown colony, embodied this kind of physical endurance. He was out there in the wild, leading by example with strength and tenacity. This physical labor, this relentless struggle for survival, is what shaped the American identity. Meanwhile, in the Puritan heartland of New England, the concept of a work ethic was more than a slogan. It was a moral duty, a spiritual calling. Hard work wasn't just for survival. It was a means to redeem your soul. But let's not gloss over the darker side. The forced labor of enslaved Africans and indentured servants working long hours under brutal conditions was a grotesque reality of colonial life. They too were subjected to the same physical demands, but without the same reward. Instead of freedom, they earned oppression. Fast forward a few centuries, and you've found Fast Forward Tri built on the back of this labor, where the sweat and blood of colonists helped pave the way for the expansion of the nation. In the 19th century, the same hardy pioneers who settled the frontier and built railroads echoed the same resilience. The industrial age came in, and even though machines did much of the heavy lifting, the work ethic of the colonial period lived on. Today, in a world of iPhones and office chairs, the legacy of the colonial period feels more like a relic than a living, breathing force. We've traded long walks for treadmill sprints and hunting trips for Amazon orders. The contrast is stark, but there's something vital in those colonial lessons: the physical act of living, moving, and connecting with the land beneath your feet. Eliot's structured personal fitness plans may have been a tad fanciful for the colonists, but in a way they prefigured our modern obsession with customizing health. Colonial America wasn't about shiny gyms or Instagram influencers. It was about raw, unfiltered survival, where physical activity was not a luxury, but a necessity. While Eliot's intellectual musings on health may have been quaint in their own right, the colonists had something far more profound: the relentless, soul-crushing grind of survival that demanded everything from their bodies. In retrospect, we can see how this legacy of physical exertion became entwined with the American identity. It was a place where hardship bred resilience, but also inequality. As we look back at the colonial experience, we're reminded that the balance between labor, health, and human dignity is fragile, and that sometimes the fight for survival can bring out both the best and the worst in us.
So, you've subjected yourself to a portion of the RPTM podcast. We'll pretend that our attempts at humor actually worked and triggered some odd spasms you might call laughter. If, by some inexplicable twist of fate, you found this clip mildly less torturous than anticipated, consider bestowing upon us the sacred thumbs-up gesture. Oh, and there's that ominous subscribe button too, a click that seals your fate, ensuring you'll be relentlessly bombarded with our future endeavors to perplex and bewilder.